Hey everyone, welcome to the Fundamental Escape podcast. I'm your host, Mark Fitzgerald, and today I'm joined actually by a cartoon bear. Hello, Bearing.
Hello.
How you doing?
Very good. Yourself?
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. Really quite stoked to connect with you. So,
Yeah, same.
yeah. So you are actually a cartoon bear. That's pretty fantastic.
I certainly am. Been a cartoon bear all my life.
Yeah, it's amazing. And a bear with some pretty right-wing conservative political views, I guess you could say.
Is that how you see him? I mean,
I don't know. Maybe let's deconstruct that.
I probably wouldn't call them that. I wouldn't call them, in any way left either. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think I really think in terms of the political spectrum when I do my videos. I just call out bullshit. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you say that. I actually can see a little bit of that in in my approach now, but I'd never considered it.
Yeah, interesting. We're learning on the spot. It's fantastic. So where do we begin? Oh my goodness, it was I guess it was less than a month ago I came across your videos, and yeah, I guess I was keen to kick off with just hearing a little bit about the channel and how, obviously where you started and why you started and what motivates you to, because you're cranking out quite a lot of material, quite quickly, aren't you?
I am, yeah. Look, I really enjoy doing it. I mean, the channel started, there was nothing serious about it. I was basically sitting in a mate's garage, I think we just watched a saga of a CAD video and we started talking about, well, shit, I bet we could rip the shit out of people like that and, get a few laughs. And so I remember we just watched, I forget who it was, but we just watched some fucking idiot feminist get torn to shreds by Sargon. And so I thought, geez, I wonder if there's any, down under, whether there's any of these types of, rad femmes, in Australia. And so we did some searching, came across Tiisha and thought, fuck, no one's attacked her. We've got to do this. So,
yeah.
So I did, and that's...
So she was just cranking out videos on her channel sort of a thing, or...
Yeah. She had. She didn't have that many plays, but I think she was making them for. Do you know the website Everyday Feminism?
Yes. I
do.
Yeah.
She was doing videos for them. I think, although I've never seen her on the actual website. Maybe she was submitting them or something. But...
Actually, now that you bring that up, that Everyday Feminism, I think it was that website. My friend Jacob, we recorded a little bit of banter after the Milo Yiannopoulos episode, and he pulled up that page and started reading shit from it. And
it's incredible.
It was like something like, what's with the breadsticks or something? It was like, isn't it a little bit misogynistic or something? I was like, what's going on? This is crazy. So I suppose, it's funny you talk about wanting to see what the kind of, feminist kind of, kind of vibe was in Australia where you are. I kind of felt the same way when I, obviously connected with the likes of Milo and things like that. I was like, I wonder what's happening with feminism here in New Zealand. And, I chatted to Lauren Southern a bit about it and things like that. And yeah, I mean, we had here in New Zealand, we had a campaign that kicked off, must have been last year, I think it was, called My Body, My Terms.
Well, and, what? My Body, My Terms?
Yeah, so, I should, no, they're not really making, actually, I should see if there's a video. There's probably is a video, you could do something with it. Yeah, no, there is actually. That's a good idea. Live on the spot. I'll give you some material. So it was basically these B-grade, New Zealand TV actors, basically naked, with hashtag My Body, My Terms all over themselves.
Oh, great.
And it was actually, you know what? I'll see if I can pull up the website so we can actually, because I know you like to do this kind
of... So what was the message? Were they saying, don't call me fat or something? Or?
No. It was to do with... It was like what do they call it? Revenge porn kind of a deal. Sort of like, I can be naked and you can't judge me, and I can do what I want. And yeah, so, hang on, I'm just on their website here. So let's go through. Okay, I actually read through some of these with Lauren, actually. Actually, this is funny. You're pretty good. Actually, feel free to do your little beer and commentary on these, actually, by the way.
Sure.
It says... Rather than telling potential victims how to avoid being raped, we need to openly talk about consent, to encourage people engaging in a sexual encounter to make absolutely sure that their partner is consenting.
Oh, see, I covered this in a video I've just published this morning.
I saw that actually with Lacey.
Like the problem with rapists isn't that they have never been taught that they need consent. They don't give a fuck about consent. They're going to rape.
Yeah, yeah. Consent needs to be freely and enthusiastically given, not coerced. If you're not sure whether your partner is consenting, stop. Like I said to Lauren, I was like, who needs to be told this? Like, this is absurd, right?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. If you happen to find yourself raping someone, I'm sure that
what is going on the subject of rape, I have to throw in the video you did on Chink from the Young Turks, and your thumbnail was Chink raped me.
Yeah, and then I asked, how many people would claim that Chink raped me, and we got we got the equivalent of the number of women who are accusing Bill Cosby in about half an hour. It was amazing.
Although I wonder what your thoughts are on that now post being charged. Obviously, that's sort of changed a little bit, that story. But
yeah, look, I
guess your convictions are still the same, aren't they?
Exactly the same. Nothing's changed because where I have covered the Bill Cosby saga, I've always said I don't have an opinion as to whether he did it. All I've ever said is he deserves due process. Yeah. And so it is wrong to come out and say he is guilty just because there's 35 women claiming that he did something. Put it through a court, get a verdict, and then you can claim it. That's all my point ever was. Oh, yeah, it's amazing how many absolute nut jobs come out and just you fucking asshole. You're a rape apologist. Fuck off.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. So I guess I could point people to your latest video. I won't go through the rest of the whole list here, but there was the last few that were quite interesting to me. Where basically, I think this really highlights, and I had a laugh with Lauren about this, was that it really highlights the and I know you point this out in your videos a lot too, that with all this consent conversation, it really is about men getting consent, right? Like they don't use that language explicitly.
Yeah, they don't mean women have to make sure. They don't fucking mean that.
Yeah. So the last 3 points, it says, women who have sex are not sluts. Women who take, pose, or share intimate photos of themselves are not whores. And then I said, we sort of joked, me and Lauren were joking about this sort of men's rights activists kicking up a fuss if they didn't include something. So the very last point says, men who take, pose, or share intimate pictures of themselves do not deserve to be ridiculed. It's like, that was just so tokenistic sort of thing.
And going back a sec, I'm sure whores do take naked photos of themselves. It's unfair to say that they don't.
Yeah, well, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't exactly know how old you are. I'm sort of guessing you're like a child of the 80s, like me, I suppose.
Yeah, 1984.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was pretty spot on. I'm 82, so... Yeah, okay, I can tell by the way you kind of communicate. I was like, yeah, I get where this guy's coming from. Like, so I think what's fascinating to me, and I'd be interested, not to get too serious with a cartoon bear, obviously, but... when I started coming across, because I was completely unaware, like I say, I grew up in this religious bubble, essentially. I was like so sheltered from all this feminist like language and like social justice warrior. And that's what was interesting with Milo, to get him to sort of unpack some of these terms because they were so new to me. I was quite curious to ask you, when did you start coming across this kind of stuff? Have you always been aware of this craziness, or like was there a moment where you're like, "Holy crap, what the hell's going on?" sort of a deal? Like,
yeah, there was. I mean, I've got a good mate who I watch a lot of YouTube stuff with, and I often go through bearing material with him. And he largely sort of got me onto this stuff probably a couple of years ago, and I spent a year and a half just being a YouTube viewer. And, watching videos thinking, you should have said that there, or you could have said this, that would have been funnier. And, before I started making them. So, yeah, probably a couple of years, I would say, I've been clued into this shit.
Here's what I think is interesting about you. And, I mean, I know your channel has grown very quickly, right? Like, you're at about 22,000 subscribers now. I just checked. Like,
yeah, it's incredible.
And it's what? Your first video was like 4 months ago? Like, it's nuts, man.
Yeah, it is.
So when did you start really, how quickly did it pick up, and when did you sort of have this moment of like, holy crap, this is actually getting traction?
Look, I mean, I started working on the first, Tiisha videos, and I think I was, I seemed to sit around 300 or 400 subscribers for what seems like a while. It was probably a week, looking back at it.
Yeah.
But then it just went crazy after sort of 2,000 or 3,000. It just like I sort of I look at my channel and I regularly get sort of 500 subs a day. It's absolutely insane. I don't know where they come from, but
it's well, here's my take on it. I'd be interested. This is my kind of theory as to why you're growing so quickly. I think everyone's getting a bit like samey with all the like anti-feminist rhetoric, and I think for you to come along with this like lovable kind of cartoon character and do what you do, you're making these very serious points, and you make incredibly articulate points using using a beer, obviously, but it's fun, right? And you're taking the piss out of these people, but in a sense you're kind of also taking the piss out of yourself. Would that be fair?
I was just going to say that. I think that's a very, very important part.
And it's this kind of refreshing Aussie sarcastic, like witty humor.
Well, who would you be if you're out there taking the piss out of every second person you came across? Who are you if you can't take the piss out?
Yeah. And that's the thing. And I mean, we talked off here obviously about my interview with Gavin McInnes. If I couldn't take the piss out of myself, I would have. I would have just hated that interview. I would have been just offended and upset. And, it's funny, my co-host was, kind of offended on my behalf at first, going, Mark, do you really want to put this out into the world? And on our latest episode, we were just kind of reflecting on the last 22 episodes, and I was like, that's honestly one of my favourite episodes.
So tell me, who's your co-host? He lives in America?
Yeah, David Werber. So we connected a couple of years ago through some kind of failed endeavours online. I got a bit impulsive and sort of dived into a few sort of online network marketing type ideas, and so we connected up. And he's a web developer, real smart guy. He's a musician as well, and he started a website called Music Forte, actually. I'm not sure if you heard of that. But, so back in the day, they were sort of doing podcasting and things like that. It was actually, back in its day, it was pretty decent sort of thing. So, and he's, like I say, with the content, we tend to talk about, kind of being sort of spirituality and stuff like that. He's not really religious as such, but he kind of gives that sort of outside perspective, and it's quite cool. We're in some pretty interesting space, actually. I just started a sort of a series on YouTube with an atheist, actually. So it's cool, and it's not debating. It's not the whole tide. I'm not sure your thoughts on. I'm not sure actually. Did you see? Or Milo was on that Drunken Peasants podcast. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't. No, I haven't watched that one yet.
If you go to my channel, shameless plug, I sat through 3 hours of what I call drivel, essentially. It was just crazy what they're talking about. But I actually recorded he did a little sort of 10, 12 minutes sort of rant on religion. They inevitably got around to religion and stuff. And Milo was sort of trying to. I guess you feel free to weigh in on the whole topic as much or as little as you want, I guess. But, Milo was sort of trying to make these nuanced points about, one of the guys was going, Christianity's got full of genocide and rape and blah, blah, blah. And he kind of lumped in all these kind of crimes throughout history. And Milo's basic point was, you're holding Christianity responsible essentially for every crime that was committed in a country that has Christianity, sort of a deal.
That's a fair point.
Yeah. So he was that was and that was a point that I'd never in my life heard anyone bring up. I was like, wow, he's sort of making this nuanced sort of point. And they just went batshit crazy. Like, they were like, no, it's deluded, deluded, blah, blah. And they just, I've had atheists comment on that video going, that pissed me off.
On the same token, though, I've never come across a group of atheists that have fucked a heap of kids, though.
I guess I was asking. Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing, isn't it? Of course, I'm not going to sit here and defend religion on that point. But again, I would say, abuse happens. Abuse is a human thing. It's not a. Yes, of course, it's when it happens systemically in a religious group. Of course, I mean, fucking hell, like, like that, you know. And it's funny, I guess now that we're on that topic, you've got a handful of videos, you know, dealing with religion, obviously. So I'm guessing you're not against talking about it, obviously.
No.
So there was the one, I think it was the Rockfish group or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
The little kid calls in on Skype, and you're just like, oh, I have to go back and listen to it. But do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because it's kind of losing my track on it.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that was a classic one that I just saw and I thought this has to be teased. It fucking has to be. Like, you know, you've got this kid ringing up this group of 20 or 30 something year olds, you know, saying, I'm being bullied at school, help me, and they're saying, pray to God, it'll sort itself out. But they seem to give him this confidence that, you know, suggests that just pray to God and do whatever the fuck you want, and she'll be apples. You know? And it sort of just it just seems a bit irresponsible, you know. Like, you know, I think I mentioned in the video, like, for fuck's sake, you know, he'll be jumping off cliffs, you know, flapping his arms, you know, in the belief that God's going to catch him, for Christ's sake.
Well, this is the point, actually. I've heard people sort of make comments on that. It's like, you know, people believe things, but there really is this underlying doubt in the whole system, really. Like, if people really, like what you've just kind of articulated, if people really had this unquestioning faith in this divine being to catch them.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
you know.
of course. I think that a lot of really religious people don't actually believe in their religion, but they hope it's true. It's hope.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, as someone who's grown up in the system my whole life, I completely agree with you. Honestly, like, it's true. And
can I ask what religion you grew up?
I mean, Christian, essentially, I guess you could say, if you want to get specific, I suppose Pentecostal sort of a deal, like,
yep.
Happy clappy, you know, swinging from chandeliers. Yeah, I mean, again, it's interesting to me, and I suppose I'd be interested in your thoughts on. I mean, we brought up Milo, obviously, but it's interesting with him because obviously, you know, he's this gay Catholic conservative, and
breaks all the rules, doesn't he?
Oh, totally, absolutely, but you know, from what I can see, a huge number of people that are fans of him essentially seem to be atheists, and I just wonder what your thoughts. I mean, is it okay? I mean, do you label yourself an atheist, or are you kind of in that camp, or?
I think I do. I mean, in a strict sense of the term, I do. I don't believe in any, you know, theistic religions. That's not to say that there's no part of me that's not spiritual. I don't think that. Yeah, and this could be getting a bit deep for a cartoon bear. But, yeah, I don't think that. You know, when you die, the lights simply go out, and that's it. I certainly don't believe that you will remain intact in terms of your you know, your ego and your point of view, etc. Yeah. But I think that, you know, energy doesn't die. It transfers. You know?
I think it was on one of your streams I heard you mention. Was it Alan Watts that you mentioned?
Yeah, love Alan Watts.
Yes, so do I. I was just going to say, I wanted to mention that actually before I forget, because he's got someone, I brought out some iPhone apps with a whole bunch of his audio on it, and I've got them on my phone, and he's incredible guy. He's just amazing. He kind of brought sort of Zen Buddhism to the West, I suppose you could say.
Yeah.
So you, I guess, you know, kind of wrapping that up, it seems like you've got this kind of sense that there is more, kind of like, obviously you're not subscribing to a dogmatic kind of a, you know.
Yeah. Look, I'm probably a lot like you. I sort of don't know. I don't have any firm beliefs. Certainly not in any, you know, institutionalized religion. But, you know, just talking about Alan Watts, I watched or I listened to one of his lectures probably 6 months ago that has probably had one of the most profound effects in terms of the way I think about, you know, afterlife and spirituality, etc. He made a brilliant point about reincarnation. You know, he said, what was it? He said, you know, where were you before you were born? You know, you were nowhere. So where do you go after you die? Well, you're nowhere. Now, after you die, new people are going to be born, and where did they come from?
Yeah.
nowhere. It's such a simple and beautiful case for some kind of reincarnation sort of deal. I think anyway.
There's I don't know if you've seen. There's a video of his on YouTube, and I think it's called The Dream of Life or something, and it's like
it's a short one.
It's really short, and it's so trippy. Like he's kind of taking you down this kind of thought process of like, imagine if you were God and you knew everything and you wanted to experience a surprise sort of a thing. He's essentially talking about this idea that you imagine you're God and you know everything, and so eventually that gets boring, and so you want a surprise, and so you kind of you go into this dream state, and these things happen that are unexpected, but then there's sort of a limit to that because you know they're going to happen, and it sort of goes deeper. And I mean I can't quote the whole thing verbatim, obviously, but
I get all that.
It gets to the point. It basically gets to the point at the end of the spiel, and he's going, and then you wake up and you're exactly where you are right now. And it's like, what the heck? And it's like, it's almost like a trip, right? It's just like, what the heck just happened?
It makes you think, doesn't it? And it makes you understand that, there's obviously a lot of stuff that our little brains don't fathom, and probably will never be able to.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. So yeah. Okay, from here, I guess transition would make sense. So. Your first video series, I guess it was about 3 or 4 videos you did on this girl Tiisha. Let's talk about Tiisha, because she's phenomenal.
Oh, she's incredible, isn't she?
So what was your first reaction to her when you came across her videos?
Oh, just disbelief. I thought, is this girl a troll? Is she is she serious? And I watched a few of them and I realised, fucking hell, she is. She's serious. And so I did the first video. It was a long one. It was about 19 or 20 minutes, and just picked her apart as best I could, thinking, please react, because an argument's no fun if it's completely one-sided. And so she did, to my amazement.
So how did she, did you email it to her, or did she...
Yeah.
You did? Okay. I was going to say, prod the feminist.
Oh, yeah. And I was incredibly polite. I wasn't, I wasn't snarky or attacky or anything. I simply emailed her and I said, look, I've got some queries about some points you raised. Please see this video. I really hope to hear back from you. Incredibly polite. And she didn't respond to the email. She made a video. It looked like, and I think she released it at about 2 or 3 o'clock, on a fucking Sunday morning. She looked like she'd just gotten back from the pub and been talking to the girls about this asshole who had fucking disagreed with her on the internet. Yeah. And she's made this video basically saying, I started to watch your video, but I couldn't watch it all. I stopped halfway through, and this is why you're completely wrong. Like, for fuck's sake, at least watch the whole thing if you're going to call me.
I think it was funny because as the kind of saga went on, it just struck me, and I was like, she's responding to a cartoon bear, and she's not talking about that reality.
And that's one of the beauties about my channel. It's the cartoon bear allows me to separate myself from what bearing does, because cartoons don't get offended.
Yeah. Especially when you do the little oh snap thing with the little music, and oh my goodness, I so want to just point people in your direction because it's incredible what you're doing. And I think it's funny because I think you and this is kind of continuing the point I was sort of making earlier. What you're doing is fantastic because it's lighthearted, yet you're making these serious points, and it's palatable, right? You're making it fun and kind of engaging.
Thank you.
As opposed to I kind of started getting to a point where I was getting just as annoyed at these anti-feminists as I was at these feminists, to be honest with you. It just gets silly, and it's just a whole bunch of people being angry on the internet, and it's like, what's the point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then someone like you comes along and just makes it sort of a bit fun. So, Tiisha, how long did that? Well, is it a couple of weeks or?
Oh, it was probably a month, I reckon.
Yeah.
And she did the final response that she did to me was all about how you can never silence women, and the patriarchy will never silence us. And then she shuts the fuck up for 3 months, and then she recently did another video, the first in a couple of months, I think, where she released this video saying, I've been overseas, that's why I've been absent, and I've been doing some soul searching, and maybe I should be thinking in broader
wow.
terms. So she backpedaled majorly, and I watched this video.
Did she seem genuine, or?
No, I don't think so.
That was me clutching at straws.
She was trying to save some face, basically. And I watched it, but I thought, look, you're being sort of humble enough that I don't think I'm going to attack you. I'm not going to attack this video. Yeah. And then I'm not sure if you know Hagbard Celine is another YouTuber from Oregon in the States. He's fucking hilarious. He jumped on it within about 10 minutes, just absolutely crucified her. Oh, and she took down her channel, so she's now off YouTube, unfortunately.
Wow. No, she's forever on Bearing's channel, but
Yeah, that's right.
She'll live in our hearts forever. Oh wow! I'd love to see you guys sit down with a face-to-face, like or a cartoon or whatever,
Well, funnily enough, I think it was after the second or third video or something. She actually responded to one of my emails, which I thought that's a bit odd.
Wow.
You've done that, and she actually said, "Hey, mate, are you from Melbourne? Do you want to meet up face to face to discuss these things?" And I just thought, nah.
What? You're not keen at all?
Oh, look, I most certainly would be if I was confident that I was going to turn up at a cafe or something and Tiisha was going to be there and it was just going to be me and her and we're going to have a debate whether we record it and release it somewhere or just have the conversation. That'd be fine. But I've got no confidence that I wouldn't turn up and there'd be a fucking feminist lynch mob there.
You should just hire an actual bear suit, just go full-fledged.
Hey, that's funny you bring that up. It's amazing the people that get in touch with you when you do this sort of stuff. I got contacted a couple of weeks ago by this chick who lives in Alice Springs in the middle of Australia. She said she's just started her own business and she's a freelance creator of she makes these plush toys and she makes clothing and all that sort of stuff, and she goes, I'm starting a YouTube channel to for my business, and I'd love if you could help me with a shout out or two, and I'll tell you what, I'll make you a bearing onesie.
Oh, that's amazing.
I responded, I said, you won't be able to get me to stop talking about your business if you do that. So it's actually being made now. This chick in Alice Springs is apparently making bearing onesie. So
that's fantastic.
That's going to get a bit of use, I tell you.
Oh, that's awesome. So when you find these, how do you, you just kind of troll the internet to find these random people, or do people point them to you, or?
Yeah, I do. Now that I've got a fair subscriber base, I get a lot of things sent to me, which is good. But look, I've always just trolled for it. You learn. You learn where the money is, that everyday feminism website is a gold mine. If you're stuck from it too, just
writes itself basically.
Yeah, I've got so many videos from that.
Well, it's interesting. I suppose it would kind of make sense to dive into this whole phenomenon of third wave feminism a little bit. It really does write itself a lot of the time, I guess. As I said to you, I was completely ignorant of all this stuff going on until I came across the likes of Gavin and Milo and Lauren and things like that. And I don't know, what do you say to all the stuff that's happening? I think one thing Milo said to me in our discussion was that, he seems to speak for these people that look around at this world that these feminists seem to be painting and go, this isn't the world I live in, right?
So, yeah, and he certainly does. I don't consider myself as that. Gavin McGuinness is fucking legendary. I'm a bloke who just goes on the internet and just says stuff that I think it's really that simple.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but it's clear that it's clear that what you're saying is resonating with people, joking aside, and that's why I think it's interesting. And I wonder if you, I don't want to get too serious, obviously, but do you feel a certain level of responsibility now that this is picking up? Going, man, I'm actually like you are being a voice for people. I think
Fuck
it's fair
no,
to say.
no, fuck no, no. I feel I have to be more reckless
Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. That totally makes sense.
because it's all part of you know
That's the whole free speech thing, I guess.
exactly. It's
Yeah.
a freedom to offend. I'm not sure if you watched it. You know that chick from Oxford that there's a heap of hype about her. You know, in that debate.
Journalist.
Yeah, what's her name? Kate, someone is it? Kate,
Oh.
yeah. Anyway, I'm not sure if you saw it, but there's a guy, Brendan, someone. I'll send you a link after the podcast. But there was a guy on the opposing team to this chick who makes one of the best fucking speeches, the best arguments about freedom of speech that I've ever seen. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
You've got to watch. I won't try and cover his tracks, but I'll send it to you. It's great.
No, it's cool, and I think on the subject of free speech, I think it's great because you really are finding your own voice, and I love this. You know what you just reflected there, that you've got to have this don't give a shit mentality because that's why what you're doing is good. You know.
Well, as soon as you start, I mean, I think if I started to really give a shit, then I'd be sitting here thinking, oh, is that the right thing to say? You know, what should I say? And it'd be a head fuck. It wouldn't be fun anymore. So you've just got to go balls to the wall. Who gives a fuck who you offend? Like that video I released this morning, I took the piss out of, I said something about fucking autism or something, and this guy jumps on the comments and says, I have autism. You're right. You know, it's amazing how many people come out that you've just offended in your mind that say no, great point. Like I've had several gay people make comments on my videos saying I'm a gay guy, but you're right, that guy's such a faggot. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, and you are completely ruthless with your language. It's amazing, and I think it's necessary. Quite honestly, I think it is. I think I mean, there was something, again, I know I'm referencing Milo quite a lot, but he does make good points, and I'll steal them if I can. He did this documentary called American Milo, and there was something he said in there where he said, the only response to an outrage culture is to be outrageous.
Yep, fair point.
You know, and I think it's totally true, and it shows, you know, what you're doing is of the same vein in that respect. I think.
I'm not sure if it's Milo. It's someone within that sort of camp. Says it's almost as if in today's culture saying that's offensive is some kind of argument. Who gives a fuck if you're offended? What's that to do with me?
Well, I know there's that kind of famous, kind of pithy line that Ricky Gervais says. He says, just because you're offended doesn't mean you're right.
Yep.
Sort of a deal. Yeah.
Hey, just on all that, I'm fascinated to know. I mean, I look at New Zealand, and there was a law that came out in New Zealand a year ago or a couple of years ago about internet trolling, isn't there?
I don't know, to be honest. Maybe I'm breaking it from time to time. I have no idea. I couldn't really comment.
I mean, I read about that somewhere and just thought, fucking hell, that's I hope that doesn't catch over here. That'd give me grief.
Yeah. Well, there was the thing. Again, I talked with Lauren about this thing in New Zealand. I think it was meant to be sometime last year, this kind of campaign, this Free the Nipple kind of campaign.
Free the Nipple.
And they had 20,000 people sign up on Facebook to say they were coming, and 13 showed up.
There you go.
It was like, I think the headline was like 40,000 nipples were supposed to be shown, but 26 were 26.
Hang on, were they counting actually 2 nipples per person?
Oh, it's absurd. It's so absurd, and it's
Lauren Southern's great, isn't she? I love classic videos.
I thought when I was a bit nervous talking with her because I did this intro. I was like, I'm here with Lauren Southern from Rebel Media, and she goes, her first response was, "That's a pretty good introduction," and I was like, "You just critiqued me on my intro." I was like, I thought, oh crap, this is going downhill from the beginning. But no, I think it was good, and it ended up being a pretty pretty interesting sort of conversation. I was really glad to talk to her because it was so good to get a female voice on the whole feminism thing.
Yeah, that's what I find fascinating.
I had a friend of mine, and I'll be interested, I guess, in your thoughts on this, because I had a good friend of mine, he's actually from Melbourne, actually, funny enough, but he started seeing, this conversation that I was having online and, talking to the likes of Milo and things like that, and he was just like, do you hate women? Like, what are you doing? Like, he didn't get it, right? He doesn't understand.
But he didn't get your perspective.
No, he's completely ignorant to all this shit going on with feminism. So he doesn't know, and he just thinks, in his mind, being anti-feminist is just being anti-woman.
That's misogynistic. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's pretty funny, and he kind of jokingly, kind of half seriously labelled himself a feminist just to like distance himself from me.
I'm not sure if you know him, but there's a British YouTuber called Spinosaurus Kin who released a video yesterday. Oh my god, he's this absolute fuckwit, British fella has tried to dox him and fucked up his name, got it completely wrong, and somehow they've ended up on a Skype chat, and he's recorded this, and he said, "Look, I'm recording. Give your message to anti-feminists." And he ends up like, putting the camera at himself, taking his top off and flexing his muscles, going, "This is what you'll be dealing with if you're against." Oh, for fuck's sake.
It's so funny. And I think it's funny because I think, you're obviously similar to me in the sense of growing up in a world without the internet, right?
Yeah.
So we remember what it was like to climb trees and to just be random and do things outside. Definitely. And I could use more of that kind of activity in my life. But it is funny because we can sort of compare the two worlds, and it really is like a separate world. And it's terrifying to me to think of these kids growing up now, who have had the internet all their lives and it's all they know, and they take it so seriously.
You know what freaks me out? I often talk about this with my lovely partner, Sugar Tits. I
was waiting for
the generation the generation that's growing up now. Like, if there were videos of me at fucking 11 and 12 years old on YouTube, I'd fucking die. That's no, that can't happen. Can you imagine these poor kids when they grow up and they've got some stupid, goofy fucking video on YouTube that everyone's taking the piss out of, and it's on cringe compilations and Christ knows what. Yeah. That's a nightmare. I'm so glad we just made the cutoff, didn't we? We were just of that generation that was lucky enough to escape that.
So I did. I guess on the subject of the internet, I made these 3 videos on my channel. I called it my Trollology. So I did these 3. It was the Nicole Arbour, the Dear Fat People video. Yeah. So I did Dear Social Justice Warriors, Dear Atheists, and Dear Christians.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was totally off the cuff. It wasn't planned or anything. I was just like, I did these, and it was, I was basically, the first one, the Social Justice Warrior one, I actually can't get ad revenue off it because I used the Forrest Gump music in the background.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's just, I made myself look as gimped as possible. So it was quite funny.
So when you say you did a Christian one and an atheist one, were you sort of arguing from the perspective of the opposite for each video?
It's funny how you immediately use the word arguing. No. Well, this is the thing. Okay, so the first one I did was the social justice one, which Nicole Arbour actually retweeted, by the way, which is amazing.
Nice.
So she obviously saw it, which is great. Because I said it was inspired by her. So I was basically, the Social Justice Warrior video was basically me. I was sitting there, the videos, like, the sign, the photos of feminists holding up signs sort of a deal. So I just printed off a whole bunch of slides with this text on it. I'm just sitting there holding up these words, and I was basically going, "Dear Social Justice Warriors, I feel like we've got off on the wrong foot. Can you please stop being offended at stuff? It's just like this simple language." And it was just like, if you're not blind, you'll notice that I'm fat. And I was just like, this is completely my fault. It's like, I eat too much. It's like completely taking responsibility for my actions.
It's amazing how many people don't, though, isn't it?
I was like, I'm sorry I don't fit your victim narrative. And so there was that one. And then Oh, and then so I did the Dear Atheist one. So a bit of a backstory of the Dear Atheist one. So I'm doing this kind of side YouTube channel at the moment with my friend John, as I mentioned, from Melbourne. We're just calling it Responding to Stuff. And, yeah, we've got about 4 or 5 episodes. It's quite funny. And so we just take an idea. And I'm not sure if you're familiar. There's this kind of phenomenon going on within the atheist world called street epistemology. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Nope.
Yeah, okay. So it's a guy, Peter Boghossian, he's written a book called A Manual for Creating Atheists. And,
a manual for what?
A manual for creating atheists.
Okay.
It's very religious and dogmatic. It's essentially, I mean, I used to, full disclosure, I used to be a street preacher, like back in the day. So, for 5 years. So that's kind of my sort of part of my story. But, so I've seen this kind of stuff before because I've done it. And so they essentially go out with these little periscope cameras and videos, and they're interviewing people going, we just want to talk to you about your beliefs, and like asking them questions. And it's very cringeworthy in my opinion. So, but
I just sorry to butt in. Tell me, where was the point, or was there a point where, I mean, if you were a street preacher, was there a point where you said, okay, enough, denying the opposing view, I'm actually going to consider this? Because you're obviously a person who is very open, and you consider things. I can tell.
This way.
Yeah, when did that happen?
So we're sort of going back to 2008 after doing it for about 5 years. And again, I've full disclosure. Again, I've been pretty honest on my podcast. I started really, I guess, in the last year of doing it. I genuinely found myself curious to listen to other people. Like, most of the time out there doing it, it was like, I've got a message to tell you and you need to listen to me and blah, blah, blah. And then I started actually listening, right? And people going, they were telling me what they believe. And I was like, wow, this is actually really fascinating. And I suppose it was sort of like, by immersion, it kind of caused me to be a bit more open-minded, because I was hearing, most Christians don't go outside their little bubble, right?
It's a brilliant thing to be able to do, to listen, isn't it? Like, genuinely listen to people.
Yeah, and so, so long story short, after sort of 5 years, I experienced complete burnout. I had sort of mental health issues, essentially, because, and the sort of articulation I give to it looking back is, I was trying to sustain a view of the world that just was not sustainable, essentially. It just didn't hold up to scrutiny. And after going through that kind of experience, you can't, the way I've kind of said it is that you can't just go back to the way things were, right? When everything kind of crumbles and falls to shit, like, you can't just rebuild with the same bricks, sort of a deal. So that was one of the kind of best and worst experiences of my life. And again, I do enjoy being open about it, because I think, there's a sort of hashtag on YouTube at the moment called I'm Not Ashamed, which is like, I have mental health issues and I'm happy to talk about it. And I guess that's kind of cool in its own way, for sure, absolutely. But
absolutely, yeah, I completely agree. We should be able to talk about things that are as common as that.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I'm loving the fact that you're comfortable to ask questions back, because it makes for a two-way conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I was kind of going through my trology, but so then I did the Dear Atheist video. So basically, because I had this Responding to Stuff podcast with my friend John, I sort of went all out, and I kind of pulled it back because I was like, oh, there's too much social media. So I created a Twitter account for it, and I started basically just trolling atheists on it. And because, as you know, I guess Milo was sort of the catalyst for that. I'm not sure if you saw his conversation with Dave Rubin, where he was talking about how, he kind of refers to atheists as thin-skinned and easy to wind up, sort of a thing. And it was fascinating to me to hear him talk like that. I was like, really? Because as I said to him, I grew up in this world where I was like, atheists are smarter than us and we should be scared. And, he comes along and just goes, oh, whatever, and just kind of laughs them off.
Well, hang on a sec. Your community held the view that atheists are smarter than us.
Well, I guess not explicit. It was kind of a taboo. Like, you just don't talk about it, right? Like, when you're in this religious bubble, it's just like, you don't brush
it off and ignore it.
Yeah. It's like, let's not talk about that. So I had this Twitter account for less than 24 hours, mind you, and I sent because I started reading Richard Dawkins' tweets, and I kind of got it in my head that he was like trying to launch this kind of stand-up comedy career. Like trying.
What?
No, like as like that's like I was like. you obviously didn't. No. What I was meaning was, it was like I was getting the impression like he thinks he's much funnier than he really is.
Oh,
Sort of thing. Sorry, you just took that completely literally. He's got a stand-up DVD coming out next year. So, that would be amazing. I'd actually pay for that.
I reckon he'd be really good, actually.
So here's the thing. So I went on to Ricky Gervais's Twitter. Yeah. And I sent it, so Ricky Gervais was going on, because I unfollowed Ricky Gervais on my normal Twitter a long time ago, because I was a huge Ricky Gervais fan for years. I worshipped the ground he walked on, essentially, for a long time. And so he goes on these kind of religious, rants on Twitter and whatnot, and I don't find it remotely offensive, I have to clarify, at all, of course, but he was basically he said some tweet about, I believe in, some reindeer lives in my wardrobe or some weird thing, and if you deny it, then you're hateful or something. It was something to that effect. And I simply tweeted, I was like, Ricky Gervais, Richard Dawkins' tweets are funnier than yours right now. Please address this.
Burn.
So, and I've got screenshot. I actually used a screenshot of the tweet in the video. So he blocked me. Ricky Gervais blocked me on a Twitter account.
Come on, Ricky fucking...
This is the funny thing. I'll be so interested to hear your thoughts. So he blocked me on a Twitter account that wasn't even live for 24 hours. I had one follow. I was following one person, which was my other Twitter account. Then he retweeted... No, he sent out a tweet that said, I just blocked 2 people because they were clearly being annoying and wanting a retweet. And I was like... I had the suspicion that the whole 2 people thing was a load of shit, because I don't know, maybe it was another person, I have no idea, but I went back about 20 minutes later and he'd actually deleted that tweet as well.
Right.
I was like, what the hell?
That's not the Ricky Gervais I know. That's
I know, right? I know, I'm completely with you. I'm like, are you serious? And I have a theory about it, because it seems to me it's kind of like this. I don't know what your thoughts were on his latest Golden Globes thing. I thought it was utter drivel, personally. I just think...
I haven't watched it, to be honest with you.
Oh, well... yeah. It was too safe. It was too predictable. It's just got to that point now. It's just like, oh yeah, you made a Caitlyn Jenner reference, this, that. It's just like, oh, it's been done, in my opinion, I guess,
Shock me.
Yeah. Come out naked, whatever. So he blocked me. Then he retweeted saying, that he had to block someone. And I was like, yeah, I was wanting a retweet. That's why, that's why I did it. I was like, no, what I said was genuinely heartfelt. I was like just telling you my thoughts. I was surprised as well. I was like, really? So I had this on the video. I had this screenshot of you have now been blocked by Ricky Gervais, and then I closed with this little slide thing. It was just like, think of his cat. Think of his cat. It's just it was just funny. And I think nobody should be above having the piss taken out of them. And I think if people get to that level where you can't take the piss out of them, it just gets boring, right? I think it just gets really boring. And
absolutely, I completely agree. Completely.
So that was a shock to me. That was because I'm, as I say, I mean, here's the other thing on the subject of Ricky Gervais. Obviously, he's got his 10-minute rant on the Bible on his Animals DVD. And it's funny because I think as a Christian, I think that I can appreciate the nuance of that, routine more than any atheist on the planet, because he's making these kind of nuanced references to Genesis chapter 1 and 2 and blah, 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 and I'm just like, this is hilarious.
Hey, so can I ask? I mean, were you or are you a fundamentalist Christian? Do you actually
do I sound like one?
No, you don't. No. Were you at some point?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I grew up very conservative, I wouldn't have labelled myself fundamentalist, but you grow up in a very strict environment where you're kind of handed the rules and you're not really encouraged to question. And I've still.
Look! I grew up as a Catholic. I was sent to Catholic schools, as baptised and stuff. And that's the stuff that was given to me in school. And when you don't have anything else in front of you, that's what you're right. That's what you're told to believe, and so you do. But what I mean is when you had the ability to look at the opposing views and judge things for yourself. Were you that sort of, in quotation marks, fundamentalist?
Yeah, I was. Absolutely, I was. And I think, I mean, I put my faith and my trust in having the answers more than anything else. I was a know-it-all. I just had all the answers, right? Yep. That's kind of the person I was. I was just like, and it is a total insecurity, absolutely. And that's what I think. I hope you do more videos on religion, by the way, because I think it needs to have, so there's actually a quote that from an author I actually interviewed on my podcast. He says, he wrote a book called Why Did Jesus, Moses, Buddha, and the Muhammad Cross the Road? And he basically said, the strength of any religion is found in its ability to laugh at itself, sort of a deal. And I was like, yeah, that's good. I like that.
Fair point.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of across the board. I mean, the test of any human being is their ability to laugh at themselves. And then that's going back to what I said about you. And I think that this is why you will continue to resonate with people, because you don't take yourself entirely too seriously, like most people do, like most atheists do, in my opinion. And this was half my dig on my. So I didn't finish explaining my trilogy. I suppose I should.
Sorry, man, I interrupted.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Just drag it out. Make it sound more epic than it really is. So, one of my kind of rants against atheism was that it's like atheists on Twitter. So every time I try to make these kind of pithy. This guy Peter Boghossian, who I mentioned, has written this book about converting people to atheism. Essentially, he was interviewed on the Joe Rogan podcast. So this is how big this kind of thing is becoming. So this woman tweeted him and said, "Oh, I just watched you on the Joe Rogan podcast, and you were basically talking about the meaning of life." And so I tweeted her, and I was like, "Well, what were you doing before you watched that video? Like before you discovered the meaning of life?" And her response was, "I was actually doing some chores. Why do you ask?" And I was just like,
"That's a sense of humor. I like
it." But it just seemed to me that and it's funny because, again, another Milo reference, trigger warning. But, he kind of discussed with me, as you probably heard yourself, that he's read sort of studies that correlate atheism and autism. And I was just like...
Sorry, say that again.
I don't know if you picked up on that. He basically said to me that he'd read some studies that showed a high correlation between atheism and autism.
Really?
Yeah. So he said, he goes, by that reading, atheism is some sort of a brain disease. So he actually, because he released our podcast, our interview on his channel. And he gave it the title, Milo Yiannopoulos thinks atheism is a brain disease.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
It got like 30,000 plays so far, I think. So
nice.
I was like, fantastic bit of exposure. So this was one of my kind of digs at atheism. I was like, I'm not offended that you're saying there's no God. I find it incredibly boring how you can't seem to take a joke from a theist. Like I'm supposed to be just some dumb, deluded theist that isn't allowed to have a sense of humor. Everything's militant and dogmatic and I interviewed, do you know the guy that calls himself a friendly atheist?
No.
His name's Hemant Mehta. He's a blogger in the US. So I actually interviewed him on my podcast, and he was just up for a fight. Like I said to him, I was like, "Man, I can go with you on a lot of this stuff." So he basically blogs, against church scandals and all this kind of stuff that happens. He writes about it all, and And I'm like, "Look, man," I was like, "I can go with you on a lot of this stuff. Like you're talking about stuff that needs to be talked about, absolutely." But, I kind of challenged him on a couple of points about the way he sort of comes across. I was like, it's because it seems like over and over, it's just like another story. It's just like, we get your point, and in our conversation, he got to a point where it was just like, okay, so where do we disagree? He was just like, so where do we differ? And he just was like wanting to go to that point of difference immediately. And I was just
and this is his name was the friendly atheist. Did you say?
Yeah, so I kind of call him the patronizing, pretentious atheist. But it's just because this is what it becomes, and this is this whole kind of street epistemology phenomena. Like Richard Dawkins is talking about this stuff on his website, and Sam Harris interviewed this guy, and it seems to be, and I guess I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, but obviously for a long time, atheists have tended to have this kind of militant label put on them, right? Militant, angry atheists. And I think it's sort of an overreaction to that. Like, we're tired of being called militant. So what they've kind of done in an overreaction has become, in my opinion, completely passive-aggressive.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. So, and I did notice as well, I said this on another podcast actually, there seems to be some kind of heresy hunting within the atheist community online at the moment too. There was that girl Jacqueline Glenn, I think her name is, who's a YouTuber.
Yeah.
So she started out as a Christian making videos and then she became an atheist.
Is that right? I didn't know that.
Yeah, her first video, she was quoting, herself as a Christian, and people have been railing on her because apparently she's plagiarizing all this material and things like that. Yeah. And then I saw this other atheist channel where they were talking about Lawrence Krauss. And they were just railing against him as like they were calling him a regressive left and all this kind of stuff because he was making some comments about, Muslims and stuff like that. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then I found this other video of this guy. He was literally incredible. I tried to get him on my podcast because I want to talk to this guy. He was sitting there with his veins popping out, essentially going, we don't need religion to be kind. And I was like, okay. I was like...
Oh, yeah. I get what he's saying, but if you want religion to be kind, that's fine.
Yeah, but my kind of point was the veins popping out as he's saying that. I was like, it's a little bit jarring,
But essentially, what he's saying is my point of view is right. If you don't agree with it, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
and that is wrong in itself. I mean, I have never been that kind of I wouldn't call myself strictly an atheist, but I suppose that's what I am. But I've never been a militant atheist type thing. But I think my views were probably a little bit more abrasive, say perhaps 12 months ago. And what really changed that is I actually fuck no about that time. One of my friends' fathers got really sick, and it was very quick. He was in hospital for about 3 weeks with some sort of bone cancer, and he ended up passing away after 3 weeks after he was diagnosed. It was incredibly sad, and he's a very good friend. And he actually rang me one day and said, "Look, your dad's going to die today. That the doctors have rung us. I'm going to go up to the hospital. Can you do me a really big favour? Can you come with me?" And so I said, "Oh, fucking Jesus, yeah, sure, okay." Okay, and so I went up to the hospital with him, and I actually stood in the room and cried with his family and him.
Wow.
While the dad passed away. But my point is, I saw him get the last rites from a Catholic priest, and the sense of calm and the sense of just this incredible thing that this priest was doing was really awe-inspiring. It really was. And I think that's why my point is I think that plays a big part as to why I'm not a fuck you kind of atheist.
No, you're definitely not. And I mean, it seems like you kind of label yourself an atheist like under obligation more than anything.
I just can't think of another word.
Yeah. It's this is where labels become problematic, to use a social justice warrior word. But it's true. It is true. We feel like this need to, and again, I've talked about this kind of tribalistic impulse that we all have, sort of a thing. But it's fascinating to hear you say those things, and I think this is one of the things that really is interesting to me. Like my friend Jacob, who actually, as I say, I recorded some banter with him after the Milo podcast, and he's a young guy. He's kind of, I guess they call them millennials or whatever. Early mid-20s sort of a deal, and he's this he's the one that actually got me into Alan Watts, and he's this incredibly curious person who just loves to read articles about science and what's happening in the world, and just really just incredibly curious to learn and to grow, and that's what I get drawn to. I go, man, the moment anybody becomes fundamentalist, whether it's a theist or an atheist, whoever, when everyone becomes this person that's like, no, it can't be this way, this can't be the truth, whatever.
Block
I'm just
everything out. Yeah.
Piss off. Like, I don't want to be around those kind of people, regardless of what side they land on. And it's
well, it's just simple, isn't it? The future of humanity depends on people being open-minded and considering other people's points of views. It is simple as that.
Says a cartoon bear.
Fucking oath.
So yeah, this is interesting. So yeah, I guess I still haven't finished my trilogy.
Sorry, mate.
No. It's funny. It's fine. We'll just. I love the fact that we're dragging it up, making this saga. So the last one I did was this Dear Christians video. So I thought, basically, like the whole point was like, I was like, in the name of offending equally, sort of a thing. I kind of made these few statements about, when atheists say they don't need religion to be moral and upstanding people, I was like, they're right, sort of a thing. And then I had some kind of quote from the Bible, something to do with Jesus. Kind of, I was like, I sort of asked this question. I was like, well, who did Jesus piss off the most? And it was the Pharisees, these religious leaders who were part of the establishment. He kind of gave them the middle finger and was just like,
Good point. Good
point. I mean, these were the ones that thought that they were the most upstanding, righteous people who, had it all. And he just kind of goes, no, screw you guys, like, sort of a thing. And it's funny actually, this atheist guy Lucas I'm talking to on my belief series on YouTube at the moment, he's kind of really he's sort of having these sort of eye-opening moments in our discussions and going, man, like if this kind of he's like, if there was a Christianity that was more like, this is his words, like unprovoked, he goes, if Christianity was essentially more like Jesus, I'd kind of be in, sort of a deal.
That's a fascinating statement.
Yeah, I was blown away by that, and I mean, I think it reminded me of there's a sort of a Gandhi quote where he says, "You Christians are so unlike your Christ."
Yeah.
I think he said I would be a Christian if I would follow Christ if it wasn't for you Christians, sort of a thing.
That's a really good quote, because I mean, you take the stereotypical fundamentalist Christian, and they are fucking nothing like this Jesus would have been.
Well, I talked about, there's a guy Shane Hips. He's a real smart dude. He's into like science and technology, and he wrote this book called Flickering Pixels, which is all about how technology shapes your faith. And basically he was talking about how throughout the ages, how like when the printing press came into play and people moved away from like stained glass images, it actually changed. Like he's basically talking about how the technology, like there was a guy, a media theorist named Marshall McLuhan, who basically coined the phrase, the medium is the message, where he was basically saying, when people moved away from taking in images through like stained glass windows and things like that were telling stories essentially to reading text on a page, it's like moving from like I don't know if it's the right or the left side of your brain, sort of thing. Like you take in the information physiologically
absolutely
differently, And I said to him in our discussion, I was like, was there ever a point? I was like, where did Christianity kind of lose its way and become this like systematic thing? Because that's got nothing to do with Jesus at all. I was like, where did we get shafted? Because this is nuts. And I think and again, bringing up someone like say Alan Watts, for example, he's this kind of person that for me, when I came across him, I was like, man, he's kind of injecting some mystery back into this whole thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really fascinating. So it's really cool. It's really cool to create some space and have these sorts of conversations. So I think since I finally got through my trilogy discussion, I was just thinking, is there anything? I've got your channel here in front of me. I was just thinking, is there any sort of highlights? Oh, we talked about the chink raped me. That was incredible. The consent video was amazing, by the way.
Which one?
The consent video.
Oh, this morning or?
The one with the black guy.
Oh, yeah. That is a social justice warrior if ever I have seen one. Fucking hell. Oh, I love the concerned faces he pulls. They're just so concerned.
Oh, it's so funny. It's so funny. So, I mean, you don't seem to have, like, the cool thing with what you're doing, you don't seem to be stuck on one theme. I guess you can kind of take these videos anywhere, can't you?
No, and that was always, a conscious thing. I see other channels out there that are based on one particular thing. I argue against this. And that's surely that's got a use by date, because opinions change, philosophies change, and I think that it's from my perspective, it's more important than to simply put your opinions out there. And if people like them, fantastic. If not, well, fuck you.
It's a very good place to wind down. Well, it's funny, just in closing, that's kind of the interesting thing with my podcast. Like I said, it was 6 months ago, and essentially it was kind of me just kind of, working out some shit out loud sort of a deal, like talking out these sort of ideas I find fascinating and compelling. And
well, I think it's a very admirable and open and honest thing that you're doing, because to come out and say I was a street preacher to someone who is effectively a fucking an obnoxious troll is a pretty ballsy thing to do.
I've endured Gavin McInnes. I'm pretty sweet.
Yeah, fair point.
I said that to Milo actually. I was like, anything from here is fine.
So tell me, just to go back a few steps. Your American colleague, he seems to. Do you do these podcasts and then send it across to him? He has.
Yeah. Basically, he does all the editing and the production, and yeah.
He comes in like God, doesn't he? He's sort of like he's this voice at the start of
golden. I love it.
I hope he likes me. I hope he likes me. Say good things about me, American guy.
David Werber. Shout out to David. He's amazing. Oh, he'll love the fact that you just said that, by the way. No, that's cool. Well, I guess I totally want to keep talking to you. I guess I'd love to do this again if you're up for it. But
absolutely, yeah. I've had fun, yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Well, the difference between my YouTube channel and yours is probably the subscriber number right now.
Oh, mate, I think you're absolutely fascinating, mate. If I can, plug this podcast on my channel as well, that'd be fantastic, because I think you're great in what you do.
Cool. I guess that's a good place to start, with me being talked up like that. No, thanks so much, Bearing. That was amazing. I'll just.
No, my absolute pleasure, mate. I hope we can do this again.
Cool.